Your first bolt action game, the rules that nobody explains. You've chosen your nation, you've built your list, you've read the rules, and you are about to sit down to your first game of bolt action. And within 2 turns, you're going to realise that reading the rules and understanding how the game actually plays are 2 very different things, because bolt action has mechanics that don't work the way you think they do. Mechanics that the rulebook explains technically, but doesn't explain practically. And that's the gap that catches every new player in their first game. So today, I'm going to walk you through the rules that nobody explains. The things that make sense once you've played, but kind of confuse everyone before they've played. Now, before we get into the specific rules, let me explain what I mean when I say the rulebook doesn't explain the game. The bolt action rulebook tells you what you can do. Activate a unit, issue an order, roll dice, resolve the action. That's all there. What it doesn't tell you is how those actions flow into each other, how the sequence of activations creates pressure, how the order you pull dice from the bag changes what your opponent can respond to, how a single pin marker on a unit changes the entire maths of what that unit can do on its next activation. These aren't advanced tactics. They are the fundamental feel of the game, the thing that experienced players understand intuitively and new players get wrong in their first few games. And not because they're bad at the game, not because it's just because nobody sat down and explained it to them. So that's what this video is. The rules nobody explains, covering the 4 areas that new players consistently get caught. The order dice system, pins, cover and line of sight, and close quarters. And then how to actually approach your first game so you're learning, not just surviving. And if you want the reference sheet, the 2-page summary of orders, pin effects, key modifiers, then put reference sheet in the comments below and I'll send you a copy of it. It's the one I use at every game. Right, the order dice system is the heart of bolt action. And it's the thing that feels most different for any other war game most people have played. And here's how it works technically. Each unit in your army contributes 1 order dice to a central bag. At the start of each turn, all the dice go in the bag. Players take turns drawing 1 dice at random, and whichever player's dice is drawn, that player activates one of their units. They issue an order, and we'll come to the specific orders in a moment. They resolve the action, and then the next dice is drawn. The critical thing that new players miss is this. The dice are drawn randomly, but the choice of which unit is activated is yours. So when your dice comes out of the bag, you pick which of your units acts. The order in which the units activate, that's the tactical decision that defines the game. And this is where most people get it consistently wrong. New players tend to activate their most threatening unit first, the big tank, the veteran squad, the unit they're most excited about using. And what happens is they reveal their intention early, give their opponent information about what they're doing, and then sit and watch while their opponent reacts multiple activations before they get to act again. Experienced players kind of hold back. They activate support units first, the units that generate pins, that reposition, that set up the situation. And then when their opponent has committed, when the table has shifted and the real opportunity has appeared, that's when they activate the unit that matters. So the principle is this. The order dice system is not just a turn mechanic, it's an information game. Every activation tells your opponent something. The later you activate your key units, the less information you've given away before it acts. Now, the 5 most commonly used orders, let me walk through them quickly, because this is where the rulebook gives you the technical description, and I want to give you the practical one. Advance, move and then shoot. Your standard infantry order. You move up to 6 inches and then fire. The shot uses the unit's full ballistic skill, but with a -1 modifier for moving. This is what you'll use most often with infantry in the first few turns. Run. You can move up to 12 inches, no shooting. You're trading firepower for distance. Use this when you need to get to an objective, get into cover, or reposition a unit that's exposed. You cannot run and shoot. The rulebook says that clearly. So running is a commitment. You're gaining ground, but possibly exposing yourself. Fire. Shoot without moving. Full ballistic skill, no movement penalty. This is the order for units in good positions that don't need to reposition. A machine gun team in cover, a sniper that's found its nest, an infantry squad holding a position with a clear line of sight. Ambush. This is the reactive order. You don't move or shoot, you set a unit to wait, and if an enemy unit moves within line of sight during their activation, your ambushing unit can interrupt and fire at them. This is the most powerful and most misunderstood order in the game, and we'll come back to it in a moment. The down order, the defensive order. The unit goes to ground immediately, cannot move or shoot. It gets +2 added to its cover save modifier for any wounds, so it's significantly harder to kill. And if the unit retains the order dice at the end of the turn, that means doesn't go back into the bag, it removes all pins from itself at the end of its activation. Down is what you use when a unit is pinned, exposed, and you need it to survive. Now, let me spend a moment on ambush, because this is the order that new players misunderstand the most. Ambush is not just waiting to shoot, it's a threat. When you put a unit on ambush, you're telling your opponent, if you move into my line of sight, I will fire. And that threat changes what your opponent does. They have to root around your ambushing unit, or accept fire, or try to generate pins on it beforehand to reduce its firing effectiveness. So, if you remember one thing from this section, remember this about ambush. It's not about the shot you take, it's about the movement that you prevent. An ambushing unit that never fires because the opponent avoided it, that's the unit that's really done its job. It's controlled part of the table without rolling a single dice. New players use ambush reactively. They set it up when they think something's about to move. Experienced players use it proactively. They put a unit on ambush to lock down a corridor, a flank, an approach, and they shape an entire turn around what that ambushing unit might do. And here's the bit that the rulebook doesn't make clear enough. Ambush is resolved as a reaction. When an enemy unit moves and triggers your ambush, you fire at any point in their movement as long as you have line of sight during their activation. So if you generate enough pins or casualties, that unit may fail its morale check next turn, or in fact, you may kill it entirely and it will never complete the move at all. Right, pins. If the order dice system is the engine of bolt action, pins are kind of like its currency. Every time a unit takes incoming fire, whether it causes a casualty or not, it receives a pin marker, and pins accumulate. And they do two things that fundamentally change how the unit operates. First, every pin on a unit adds a -1 modifier to any order test the unit has to take. Order tests happen when a unit has one or more pins and you try to activate it. You subtract the number of pins from the unit's morale value. You roll 2d6 dice and need to equal or roll lower than the adjusted morale value. If you fail, the order fails and the unit goes down instead. So a unit with 3 pins needs to roll a 6 or less with 2d6 if it's a regular unit with a morale of 9. Because 9 minus 3 is 6, and that's approximately a 50% chance. 3 pins on a regular unit means a coin flip on whether it does anything at all. Second, any pins adds a -1 modifier to the unit's shooting rolls. So a unit with 3 pins fires at -1 to hit, but also it's a -3 to the order test. That's not a penalty, that's effectively removing the unit from the game as a firing platform while those pins are on it. And this is where the maths changes everything. New players look at the shooting table and think in terms of casualties. Did I kill a model? Did my opponent kill a model? But the real currency of bolt action is pins. A unit that takes 3 pins from a mortar and doesn't lose a single model has still been effectively neutralised for a turn, possibly 2. It can't shoot effectively, and it might not even activate. The practical takeaway for your first game: Think in pins, not casualties. When you fire at a unit, you're not just trying to kill models, you're trying to stack pins that degrade what that unit can do next turn. And when your units have pins on them, your priority shifts from what do I want to do to what can this unit still do. The retained down order removes all the pins, and that's why down matters. It's not just a defensive stance, it's a recovery mechanic, and a unit with 4 pins that goes down and removes them is back to being functional. And a unit with 4 pins that tries to advance is probably going to fail its order test and go down anyway, but without the recovery benefit, because the order failed. Cover and line of sight are two things that look straightforward in the rulebook and feel completely different with models on the table. Let's cover the basics first. There are 2 types of cover in bolt action, hard cover and soft cover. Hard cover gives a +4 cover save to incoming direct fire. Soft cover gives a +5 cover save. Hard cover is things like buildings, bunkers, stone walls, solid, bullet-stopping terrain. And soft cover is things like hedges, fences, crops, things that obscure but don't fully block. So if a unit shoots or fires at a unit in hard cover, the target gets a +4 cover save from wounds. That's a significant shift, reducing the firing effectiveness to 50% or below. Now here's what catches new players. The cover modifier is determined by the target's position relative to the shooter, not by the target's position in general. So a unit standing behind a wall is in hard cover from a shooter on the other side of the wall. But if another unit moves around the flank and fires from a different angle, the same unit may be in no cover at all. Cover is positional and it changes as units move. And line of sight works the same way. The rulebook talks about drawing a line from the firing unit to the target unit. In practice, what you're doing at the table is getting down to model level and checking what that unit can actually see. Because terrain that looks like it blocks line of sight from above, a low wall, a hedge, often doesn't at eye level of the model. And terrain looks passable from above, a ruined building, often has gaps creating firing lanes that you didn't intend. For your first game, do 2 things. First, before you deploy, walk around the table and look at it from model level. See where the firing lanes are, see where the dead ground is, the spots where units can't be seen from certain angles. Second, when you're about to shoot, physically check line of sight from the firing model's position. Don't assume, don't guess, get down and look. It takes 5 seconds and it prevents the most common rules disagreement in casual games. Close quarters or close assault is the rule I see misinterpreted more than any other in first games. And not because it's complicated, because it works differently to what people kind of expect. And here's the sequence. A unit declares a run order to move into contact with an enemy unit. When it makes contact, close assault is resolved immediately. Not at a separate phase, not at the end of the turn. Right now, during this activation, both sides roll dice equal to the number of models in the respective units, plus any modifiers. The hits are compared, casualties are resolved, it's brutal, it's fast, and it can swing a game in a single activation. The things new players get wrong. Well, first, you don't choose to close assault as a separate order. You run into contact and the close assault happens automatically. So the unit has already used its run order. It's moved up to 12 inches and now the assault resolves as part of the same activation. Second, the defender fights back. This isn't a one-sided attack. Both units roll simultaneously, so if you charge a full-strength 10-man squad into close assault against another full-strength 10-man squad, both sides are rolling 10 dice. The attacker doesn't get an advantage for charging, unless they have a special rule that grants one. Third, casualties. Casualties from close assault can cause a unit to break and be destroyed. If a unit loses the assault, taking more casualties than it inflicts, it's removed, gone, in one activation. So close assault is a high risk, high reward play. You're committing a unit to a fight that could go either way, and the loser may not survive. For your first game, my advice is simple. Don't initiate a close assault unless you have a clear numerical advantage or your opponent's unit is already depleted. Close assault is not a trading tool, it's a finishing tool. Use it when you're confident that the maths is on your side, not when you're hoping for a lucky roll. So if you remember one thing from this video, remember this about your first game. Bolt Action is not a game of individual dice rolls. It's a game of systems interacting. The order dice system determines when you act. Pins determine whether you can act, and cover determines how effectively you act, and close quarters determines whether the fight ends everything in one go. Those four systems, orders, pins, cover, assault, they're the layers beneath the rules. Understand how they interact, and your first game will make sense in a way that reading the rule book alone won't give you. Now, let me give you a practical framework for actually playing that first game. Practical advice for game one. Okay. Before the game, agree with your opponent on the terrain. Walk the table together, agree on what's hard cover, what's soft cover, what blocks line of sight, how the buildings work. 5 minutes of conversation here prevents an hour of rules debate later. When you deploy, think about where your order dice are going to go. Don't clump your units, spread them out so that each one controls a different part of the table. A unit that's covering a flank doesn't need to be in a fight. It needs to be in position to threaten anything that comes through that lane. During the game, narrate your orders. Say what you're going to do before you roll. For example, this squad is advancing, moving 6 inches toward the building and firing at your unit behind the wall. That narration does two things, and it keeps your opponent on the same page, and it helps you catch your own mistakes before the dice are rolled. When you get pins, don't panic. A unit with 2 pins is still functional. It's a -1 to hit, which hurts, but it can still activate and it can still go down to recover. 3 pins is where it starts to get serious. 4 pins means the unit is effectively out of the game until it goes down or rallies and recovers. And after the game, and this is the most important part, talk to your opponent. Walk through what happened. Ask what they were thinking at key moments. Ask about the rules interactions you weren't sure about. That post-game conversation is where the real learning happens, and it's worth as much as the game itself. Right, to pull this all together. Your first game of Bolt Action will make sense if you understand the 4 systems: the order dice system, pins, cover and line of sight, and close quarters. The order dice system is an information game. Hold back your key activations. Pins are the currency of the game. Think in pins, not casualties. Cover is positional. Check it from model level. And close quarters is a finishing tool, not a trading tool. Play your first game to learn, not to win. Narrate your orders. Check your line of sight. Go down when you're pinned and talk to your opponent afterwards. Now, if you want the reference sheet that I use in every game, order summary, pin effects, key modifiers, all on a couple of pages, just comment reference sheet in the comments below and I'll send it to you. The Bolt Action rulebook, starter set, and everything you need for your first game are linked in the description down below through Warlord Games. It all helps to support the WarHQ at no extra cost to you if you use our affiliate link, and I'd be very grateful. The next video in this series covers the common mistakes new players make in their first few games, the tactical errors that cost you games before you even know you're making them. Hit subscribe and you'll know when it drops. So, take care guys and girls, and talk to you again soon.